Jeff Kryka, film composer and orchestrator with awards for Turner Classic Movies, ASCAP, and the Henry Mancini Foundation, and works featured in the Batman, Thor, Love and Thunder, Glass Onion, Marvel's Spider-Man trilogy, The Imagineering Story, Jojo Rabbit, Incredibles 2, Coco, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, Doctor Strange, Star Trek Beyond, and Inside Out. Woo!
I don't believe it either.
Jeff, so composing is often a slow burn as a career. When did you notice that your composition career really started to take off and gain traction, and how could you tell, and do you attribute that to anything in particular?
Yeah, it's probably a recurring theme that you're noticing up here is that there's not usually just one, pivotal turning moment. It's a lot of little baby steps that you take in your career, and that certainly was the case for me. It's not as though like just because you're an amazing composer, somebody's going to give you the responsibility to score the next Spider-Man movie or something. So for me, one of those pivotal moments was actually going to school here at UCLA, because, and this is also a recurring theme, a lot of the connections and the relationships that I formed with other students, other faculty members while I was a student here, are still people that I have relationships with today and find work with today. This morning I was just in the early stages of starting to orchestrate the Captain Marvel sequel movie, which is called The Marvels, which is being composed by Laura Karpman. I met Laura while I was a student here at UCLA. I took classes from her at the film department. So, and she's incredible. And although our relationship over it's been 15 years since I was a student here, has definitely changed. I did intern for her while I was a student, but it's just so great, to sort of like look back on this history that I have with her and other people too that I had met while I was a student here at UCLA. It just keeps giving, the relationships that you form, the networks that you form with people. And it's all little baby steps. Yeah.
Absolutely. And what's the hardest part about starting a new project, and what's your favorite part?
The hardest part is always beginning, because you're trying to establish a sound or a style or something that's going to work for the identity and the storytelling of the movie that you're working on. So if I'm composing the movie, that's always like the hardest hurdle to get over, is getting the filmmakers on board with the ideas that I'm having for their movie or their series or whatever it is. And if I'm orchestrating, that's the hardest thing, is just starting. It's just beginning and making sure that everything that I'm doing is vibing and jiving with what the composer's done, and making sure that I'm fulfilling the promise of their music to deliver that to the scoring stage with the orchestra performing. So, yeah.
And working with the director for the first time, how do you find out about their communication skills, how they operate, and how do you pull out the music from within what they are communicating? I've worked with some directors who are super centric about the music and very specific and will give you handwritten notes that are pages long, others that just say good or bad. So how do you manage that?
You just have to be really good at communicating. I think the best thing for a composer to learn, that I learned early on, was just not talk about music with directors. Talk about story. Talk about what the storytelling ideas are in their movies. Because if you start talking about music, you're just going to go down a path that's you never know like where it'll lead. Probably nowhere good. It's much better that I get on board with what their ideas are with the storytelling in the movie and what I'm feeling as somebody that's part of this, experiencing the story. And reacting against it, and how I would want to feel as an audience member. So yeah, that's that hurdle to get over early on. Making sure everybody's on board with what we're doing and that we're walking in lockstep, because I don't want to ruin their movies.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about a time when you were composing for a project and encountered a difficult situation and how you ultimately resolved it?
Yeah, there's a few that I could think of, definitely. There's always something on a project where you have a difficult moment and you have to solve it. One of my earliest short films that I worked on while I was a student here at UCLA, I remember the director, every demo that I was writing, the director just kept saying, oh, it needs to be darker, it needs to be darker. It was a Civil War movie. It was a very dark movie. A lot of people were dying. It's just like, it needs to be darker. And so everything to me that meant, oh, I need to go more dissonant or more, low instruments, something that's very complex and psychological. And then finally I realized, oh, maybe what we should do, because nothing that I was doing was working, was I said, okay, well, what for you would be dark? What kind of music would be dark? And he said, well, we should listen to the temp music. Because for him, the darkness that he was sort of looking for that I wasn't giving was actually in the temp music. They had this minor, kind of very simple kind of piano piece, and then the dark moment that he was going for was actually this moment where it went from like minor to major, and for me it was like this very bright, like the clouds opening up. So we had these two very different conceptions of what dark meant. So yeah, once you realize that and you learn how to like really communicate with people, I think you avoid things like that.
Communication
Learning
is
experience.
Key. Yeah. Absolutely. Jeff Kryka, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, now, unfortunately, no more lightning rounds, but this is the time to open it up for a little Q&A. So anyone who has a question, feel free to raise your hand, and we'll get to you. And if you want to address it to a certain panelist, feel free to just ask, or a general, and one of us could step in and help answer it. So feel free to raise your hand.
Oh, hi. I had a question for everyone. So when you're getting that first job or that first internship, what is the thing that gets your foot in the door, or what is the key to almost convincing them that you're the thing that they need?
Yeah, I would say second all of these. It's really what I've understood. It's about being a really good collaborator with the people you work with, and forming really good relationships with everyone. So, yeah.
Fantastic question. Thank you so much.
Hi, this is for everyone also. How do you balance when you have a lot of different gigs all in the air at the same time, and prioritize your time, and at the same time be thinking, do I need to clear space in my schedule for the thing that hasn't come yet, and which one do I let go of, and to create the space and know that something you want more is going to come into that space? Because I find myself just so busy, and I'm like, I don't think there's space for the new thing to come in yet. So how would you think about that?
I think it's totally okay to say no to things at a certain point. Especially when you're younger, you're just told, say yes all the time, so that you take every opportunity. And while that's true, at a certain point, there's only so much we as humans can do. So, and you really have to try to, at a certain point, find a way to carve out time in your day so that you're not, 24/7 always working, and that you have a life and time to rest and walk the dog or whatever. So I really try to seek out projects as much as I can with people that I really work well with and enjoy working with. So that's the thing that I'll usually look for on a project, is if it's somebody that I have a good relationship with, I know I'm going to have an okay time working on it, as opposed to maybe somebody I've never worked with before. I think that's really important, because at the end of the day, you want to go home happy. So, yeah.
Fantastic question. Thank you so much for asking. Really appreciate it.
Hi. I think my question, is mostly for like the gigging side, but a conversation that I have a difficult time with, or that I find a lot of people don't give a lot of information on, I think is like payment and rate. And I'm finding myself kind of like, how do I go into this conversation knowing that like I'm getting paid what I should be and I'm not getting ripped off, especially because I've no like prior knowledge. So how do I kind of enter that conversation and kind of establish a rate that's fair?
A little insider information.
Definitely communicate as much as you can with not just the people that you're hoping to work with, but also your peers, and see what they are getting paid for similar projects. And other types of things too that can compensate, whether it's the opportunity or any kind of back-end payments, royalties, those sorts of things that can change the calculus definitely, but only you yourself know how much you're worth. So you just have to obviously take that into account, yeah.
Having worked with a lot of conductors being a cellist, I've had a lot of, say, interesting times that I've had to go through. How would you deal with a problematic person in your field? Just out of curiosity. Thank you.
You'll be able to solve it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think because usually we're in very high pressure situations, you know, where time is money and you're trying to get through so much music so quickly. Really the best way is just to stay positive no matter what you can do. And that's the best environment to be creative in then under those circumstances. So, and just try to avoid people like that in the long run if you can. And you're right, I don't think many horrible people tend to rise very far. They tend to fall away because of the personality. Yeah.
Well, there we go. Thank you, everyone, so much for coming to the first Insider Access at the UCLA Herb Alpert School of Music. Really appreciate it. There's a couple people that I just wanted to thank real quickly: Dean Strempel, Liz Volwinkle, Brandon Faber, Cameron Roberts, Sean Allen, and to all of our amazing panelists: Nicole Cohen, Nicole Garcia, Satya Fuentes, Vince Villanueva, and Jeff Kryka. Thank you so much.